Greetings, greetings, greetings. Give honor to source, ancestors known and unknown. Sit here in the yard, and I said, you know what? I gotta add another episode to the conversations from the father you never had. Trying to ground myself right now, put my feet to this ground, and so forth. Because I feel like y'all be able to hear me. Yeah, y'all should be able to hear me. It's wild because I was like, should I let my phone charge up? Oh, let's give an honor to the ancestors known and unknown too for the highest good of all. I'm over here doing one of my childlike things. One thing, if I ain't got no cereal, I'm saying like the opposite thing. If I don't have milk, or sometimes I'd just rather have cereal with no milk. But I was sitting here pondering, and the topic that came up, one of the topics that I have, was about this ain't even a topic, but two random big ass, where y'all going? Huh? Where y'all going? Two big ass dogs. One of them look old, but talk about unexpected. But anywho, this topic, is that y'all dog? No? I really don't need this other jacket on. But basically this topic is the father who refuses to go to therapy or just avoid conflict resolution in its entirety. So that's a big one. Where could I put this up right here? Oh, I can. Oh, I just did a big one right there. The reason why this topic is so important for me, simply because I've noticed how important it is for me to have connected to therapists and to know personally therapists, and actually was going to go to school, well, at that moment in my life, going to school to be a therapist. I've had people tell me naturally, like, you should be a mentor, not just so much of a mentor, but something along down the lines dealing with things therapeutic or some type of mediation and mediator or whatever. But anywho, I just naturally, as I start to learn me more, just naturally tap into things, and from lived experience can relate to a lot of stuff. So for me, it's kind of like natural to talk about these things, discuss them, and to share it. Now, we coming from generations that are not big on at all being therapists. Not therapists, being going to therapy. So in my experience, one of the biggest things that I can say that affects everybody involved, especially men, fathers, and so forth, young men that were growing to boys, is the importance of what, like I said, there's different types of therapy. I know one that was effective for me was talk therapy. talk therapy was a big one because, well, you can call it talk therapy, but because a different type of therapist that I've connected with, but I know talk therapy was a good one that stuck out for me. Um, the one I know personally, uh, when I was going through the shelter experience, I didn't realize how much unprocessed emotions we have. And so that's a big thing that really catches up with people in the long haul. It has affected my relationship personally, not only just with myself, but had like tremendous effects on my family dynamic, just interpersonal and also extended or immediate, whatever you want to call it. Simply because it really highlights that how much people really hide from themselves, how much they continue to repress over the years and ignore, and you know these signs eventually show up in the body. um I know I'm in alignment with what I love to do because uh for a lot of you, just imagine the conversations that you could have if that father or somebody would sit down and even if you have offered them to go to therapy, or even the fact of you're sitting down, it's a form of therapy. uh, and conflict resolution is something that I feel that was really embedded in us, like a form of programming. Like, because when you have environments, especially dealing with, um, and it shows up differently. Like when you have a father specifically that's emotionally unavailable, I was that father that seeing how much I didn't really value the emotions of myself and other people. Now I was very empathetic and very compassionate, but I start to realize, like, the more and more I grew into my journey, my experience, how much unprocessed emotions or unresolved things, because that's another thing. When we're talking about a father that avoids these things or does anything to, say, well, you'll get over it, or let's move past it, or um, let's, use material things to try to cover up. And for those of you that have the opportunity, um, I would encourage it. But there's so many different ways. I feel like a lot of this is leading me into like connecting with women on a bigger scale, or like a grander scale, to have these conversations, because there's still some type of things where the talk therapy supports that, like things that are unresolved within us, where if I ask you a question, there's something where it comes up, the triggering emotion or something that bothers you, and that allows you to no longer hold on to it. So, but even through that process, it's still the discipline in keeping that version of you at bay, or so that it doesn't more so consume you like it did before. So, jumping more into the topic at hand about that father that avoids therapy, overall, these are the men. I'm speaking from a man and a father. These are the men that, again, the little boy who never had found conflict or resolution with the very thing that was unresolved, these things that were unprocessed. And these are emotions. And that father-daughter dynamic is so vital because the daughter literally mirrors back those deep depths of not only his emotional parts of who he is, But that brings out, notice how when you see a father and daughter connection, if it is healthy or going through the process of becoming healthy, like with myself, is I realized going through therapy, the things that I did not process or had that was unprocessed or unresolved with my mother affected not only just my relationship with my daughter, but overall things matriarchally, like even with her mother, things that we experience, I realized and I start to recognize to more the resentment, the anger, the emotions around things that had nothing to do with my daughter, but had everything to do with what I knew now to be unresolved or unprocessed through the experience, through the lived experience with other people. So a lot of these men that you see as your fathers and so forth, a lot of them hold on possibly to a lot of shame and guilt. And they've consistently been in a pattern or adapted to this tough guy mentality or not showing any emotion at all. So a lot of their foundations and dynamics stem from that. It stems from a place of, um, not ever trying to show emotion. And then also, when you think about the systems in place or just the fact of how it has, it encourages men to be more focused on their material gain, their success, rather than um, their emotional stability. So it gears them towards more focusing on physical stability and providing. And in that, yes, that is part of it. But in not knowing the importance of having an emotional bond or connection with you or your with yourself and or other people, it will eventually, it's like a ticking time bomb. It will have a profound effect, an effect on those around you eventually. Even if you can be that father that provides and protects so much to where there's still an underlining thing disconnect to where with the daughter or with even as she grows. I've seen this through experience. I see it through the lens of even me prioritizing my emotional well-being and so forth. And I even had to express to her mother, like, I'm at a, hey girl, my little cat, was you sleeping down there? I had to express to her, like, sometimes we overlook the fact that some people have been in, let's say, a season of like when you see how people consistently have been in a season of like overhaul, working and so forth, it's very challenging to try to get that man and or father out of their comfort zone, what they've adapted to for so long, and let alone trying to pull some type of emotion or empathy out of them. It's not to say it's not there, it's within us all, but it's more so how long they've been doing this. I had to express to the mother of my children the importance of like the season that I'm in. Um, a lot of when we are taught as fathers, a lot of why a lot of men probably avoid anything dealing with emotions, it stems not just from the mother wound, but more so of no one ever having a soft place for them to land, even after a long journey of hardship, even after a long journey of dealing with things personally or internal battle that you don't see as his daughter. Whether that be men that have had, substance abuse, dealt with substance abuse coming out of prison and so forth. It's so many different things, perspectives where there's so much pressure on them to be a certain way, to accomplish a certain goal. Even if you're not this and that, then there's automatically judgment or this outcast if you're not a part of a certain group narrative, um, ideology of what a man is and should be. And a lot of it, again, when you think about the growth of most of them men dealing with immature mothering, women who were never nurturing, women who never held them, protected them, not just physically, but emotionally. So that right there, again, their approach and even interaction and exchanges with women are not really trustworthy. They're not built upon trust. They're not built upon honesty and love and so forth. So one of my videos, I expressed the depths of even how, with dealing with such women as such, these foundations recently, when you think about modern day, not most, but majority of modern day women are just the distorted mother of that, to where women who displace, their mothers, let's say their mothers, your grandmothers, display this immaturity, emotionally immature, but not emotionally secure or stable. And being like, let's say some of them were single mothers, then they already were in a lot of hardship to where they had to do a lot of things on their own. So in that, some of them probably were around mostly men a lot. I mean, mostly women growing up who did not have a healthy viewpoint on men. So with that, a lot of fathers carried an image internally, subconsciously, a programming. This planet sees of resentment, hatred towards the 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 feminine archetype that gives birth to his actions in a masculine way. So his way of trying to interact basically comes from um, how and who has shaped his reality or ideology of what and how women are supposed to be. So when you look at the interaction between him and his mother, is it based off something emotionally secure, balanced, stable? Is there honesty involved? Is it about just monetary value? How does his mother see him? You know, is it encouraging? Is it uplifting? All of these things are very vital, because from that lens of his mother, he will too see you, not just from your mother, but as a daughter. It's still all connected matriarchally. So he is just a reflection of what the patriarchal is. And so with that, um, this is why a lot of them, I've noticed, even especially baby boomers, people who are in their late 70s, 80s, or whatever, around that age, even probably 60s. Um, you know, you're not going to typically hear them go and hear about them going to therapy. No, a lot of them still are in the yard trying to work, or still trying to find a sense of peace and so forth, or their life has been consistently focused on external, never internal. Most of their life is just being focused on, um, how could I provide for everyone else. And then you talk about different viewpoints of how a lot of them have had warlike consciousness. So a lot of this tough guy, or even if they are somewhat, it's not to say some of them aren't compassionate, but a lot of them are coming to a self-realization of, even make sure my phone not getting hot. Coming to a self-realization how much they have, for one, overgiven in certain relationships. Some of them are at the age to where it's like all they have now is the rest of their life to try to be healthy, or they, some of them don't even see past the fact of like how much they've you know uh, done so much, to where they have, again, unfulfilled desires, or stayed too long because of children, or because of marriage, or because of so many different things that we can go down a list of. So these are things internally that, if you ask some of these men about therapy, especially in indigenous culture, and this isn't all cultures, but I know personally, like, that shit is taboo. That shit is considered weak. That's considered like, how dare you go over there and talk about your feelings and emotions. And even from all of this, I just think it's so wild how much, um, and this is the thing where I'm realizing how the divine is allowing me to be a vessel to reconnect that bridge, that from emotions, the emotional empathy and bond that my daughter, and if I will have another daughter, or just the fact of the women in my life can be able to walk over that bridge and feel safe, and be able to, and then I be able to hold space. Because again, a lot of these men aren't, they never felt emotionally safe, and that's a part of them expressing, you know, their emotions. You have to feel emotionally safe. So when you think about, a lot of men have stayed in relationships with some of your mothers, or been in marriages for so long, or just the fact of how even the world has portrayed how men should be, projected them on, you know, how even the world praises. I know I'm gonna step on some toes, but it is what it is. Pray, like, tries to uplift the combative man, the warlike conscious man, the man that is aggressive rather than empathetic, or has a balance between knowing where to be assertive and then knowing when to be still. And that goes back to even when I was saying, like, the mother of my children, like, coming off a journey of being a cycle breaker and so forth. Um, like I said, she was at the tail end of things that wasn't okay when it came to um, my impulsivity, my aggression, my unprocessed emotions, so many different things where I'm grateful for her. I'm grateful for the fact of her patience. But I also had to recognize, too, her relationship with her father, and what I call, she doesn't have to call this, but what I call a father wound, because I recognize the disconnect so much, to where I can see the signs of how um, you can count on one or two fingers how someone is there for you physically, but where they're a soft place for you to land, or emotionally safe for you, or even, you know, encourage you to build upon emotional safety, rather than hoard how you felt, or was not protected, or were not guided through navigating your emotions as a little girl, into connecting more on a level between, you know, being the bridge. And I've noticed that, like, the disconnect um, gradually more, as you see her connection to our daughter, my connection with my son, and seeing the father and mother wound play out through the both of us. Not in the same way, but for me, the mother wound is more so like the emotional unavailability. But then see the father wound play out for her, where you just had a man who, when you think about men having multiple children, there's a pattern there of them. Um, when you realize, like, how much you ever notice how some men turn into little boys around their mothers, and it's like and that's natural, but at the same moment, it's more so recognizing some of these connections being more of a smothering, or them still trying to connect with that mother in a way to where you some of us didn't see the bigger picture of, like, how emotionally unavailable or detached she was, because of having to be in maybe something abusive, or maybe something where the father neglected her, or neglected himself, or, you know, so many different ways you can look at it. All of it plays a major role. But um, the reason I'm highlighting this is because I know that I will eventually get more into therapeutic things, because how much I'm realizing I am a bridge, not just for past and present and future, but also a bridge from those very things that wounded us, and not keeping us in that wound or that darkness anymore, but bringing us now into being able to walk across that bridge with confidence, and be able to, um, if you need to take a pause on the bridge and look, and be able to look at your old life, and then to move forward, and be able to realize, like, it's okay to grieve while you're on that bridge. It's okay to move forward, but also realizing, like, being aware of how through for some men, through our own ignorance and being naive, I recognize how the disconnect. Hey, girl. The disconnect with a lot of fathers with their daughters, it literally stems from the mother. It plays a very major role, no matter how you want to look at it. And then also too, another part plays a role in the woman that they choose to have children by. This is vital because for some of them that they probably never talked about, there is a thing how they say like you like something in a woman reflects their mother, and this is very much true because when you think about, well, what type of lens did he see that woman in, and what most men won't admit is that some of them unconsciously chose a woman to have children by that stemmed from a mother wound. So a lot of that energy reflected more so of like it being rooted in more so a wound or trying to fill that void, and something that they weren't really prepared for. They were hoping for a son, but they end up getting a daughter. Because what this does is, again, most men fear connecting more to the depths of who they are, because what it does, it brings out a different version of you. That's why I've noticed even with my daughter, it brings out, you can say the worst and the best, but the worst is the best. It brings out the parts of me that I did not want to see. It has brought out the parts of me that I don't feel shame and guilt for. But I am guilty for things that I'm not proud of, but I don't hold on to the shame around it, because a lot of things, and that's saying holding myself accountable, like it wasn't okay. It's just the awareness around like, fuck, like I was never nurtured. I made a video recently talking about realizing how I had to apologize to myself, because I didn't have the capacity to love any other woman. Honestly, I didn't have what most men probably won't admit, but I'll be the first to say as a man, as a father, and so forth, is that they'll never admit to the mother of their children this very thing, and mostly to themselves, because when you think about mothering yourself, I had to come to this realization. Even after kids, I didn't have the capacity to love their mother the way that I should have, in more so of a healthy and holistic way. Even that doesn't mean I didn't try my best or do my very best through it. There was just still things that I had no idea of, that I was still processing, that I didn't process. Prolonged grief, trying to, sometimes what happens with a lot of, the fathers, like they try to, again, connect with women, and they don't realize like it's not just on a physical level. It's on a physical and spiritual level. It's on an emotional level. You're connecting with a woman on so many different levels, to where to them, they just think a lot of them came from a lower nature. So when you're asking them to be more empathetic and sentimental or just sensitive, they never experienced it. So I had to express to myself, like, I realized my mom never had the capacity in her connecting with my father to love herself. So a lot of things we had to realize, like, it was doomed from the start. These wasn't people who were prepared to know the importance of their relationship while being in a relationship or partnership dynamic. And that's what you see the cycles of. So in that, and then after having children, if you don't have someone or anyone knowing the importance of themselves through it and knowing how to navigate through it, then most of the time you're going to see them have children, they're not going to know how to do that either, because this is a whole nother life. This is a whole nother person. This is a whole nother being with emotions. You have, and you have to balance out focusing on your well-being, their well-being. And for me, one of the biggest things, a lot of men, in that therapeutic session or in that therapeutic setting, You know, I'll be the first from a father to say the conversations you never had from the father you never had, or from the father, yeah, you never had, is a lot of us were not prepared, not just mentally. I feel like when you're not prepared emotionally, you're not really prepared financially. Because emotions you have to navigate through with having and not having. But then when you're having just a focus on being on someone who just is a provider, is a protector, then a part of them where a lot of just societal norms convinces us that our priority for our well-being isn't important, to prioritize it is what I'm saying. So then naturally, even that concept around focusing on, when you look at a baby shower, all these things around, well, the mother, the child, and everyone just excludes the father as if it isn't a part of the if it's he as a being isn't part of that trinity, that celebration, but he is. So a lot of things have been just even encourages and pour more into him being almost like isolated, and even wants to seclude himself more, and even, you know, pushes him immediately to be burnt out even more emotionally and so forth. So a lot of men will never admit to the fact that they're burnt out, they're tired, and depending if they've never healed that mother wound, especially after them having a kid. And I went through this. For some of y'all don't know that a lot of them are still in not just enmeshly, yeah, enmeshly, and also emotionally incessively tied to their own mother. When they don't have a healthy dynamic, naturally, some of them don't move away from their mothers. They really don't come into that emotional security to be empowered. Even if they have a mask, what eventually will happen is that if her ideology of him being more focused on material things, and that's how she viewed men, he unconsciously is going to repeat that pattern. He's going to naturally adapt to that. You see a lot of men and fathers who navigate through that same lens where they do not prioritize emotional, mental, spiritual, you know, well-being overall before they pursue their physical careers and so forth. They've had to mask for so long and continue to mask. And this is why they implode and explode on people. Because I'm telling you, again, I had to express to the mother of my children, like, I'm in a season with healthy partnership. You'll learn that some people are in the season of recovery, healing, navigating through stuff. So when I say that, it's not that someone doesn't want to show up, provide, and protect. If I'm in a season where, hey, I didn't even know what that was. So I'm in a season where I had to learn what it is to provide and protect for me, because having a lot of dealing with foundations for a lot of men and fathers that they never talk about, that a lot of them have got so far gone on focusing on the material plane to where they have forgotten about their emotional state. And so this is where the disconnect comes in. And it all depends, especially too, you have so many men in different career settings and so forth, to where that disconnect already is with the mother. And so a lot of them jump ship and then repeat this cycle with another family or another child. So they don't even see the importance of a lot of that being a form of even therapy. You know, why are you repeating these cycles? Why are you doing this? Why are you creating more things that karma, and then now you're in karmic debt with the reality of reason? Like you're in more karmic debt to yourself because you have been planting these seeds and you can't outrun them. So with a lot of people who have multiple children, like if your father has multiple kids, a lot of them, no one never sat down with them, or no one in their past ever sat down with them to talk about these very things. Because I'm telling you, it's a form of therapy. It's a form of addressing the importance of, for one, emotional stability, and then no longer creating instability, not only in his life, but everyone else's life. So it's a vital role, again, going back to where, even though it was so difficult and probably doesn't make sense to a lot of people right now, but I've been consistently trying to focus on as a father, which most men have, you know, they have the opportunity, but they don't choose to. Because again, they're either, when you typically have emotional disconnect, or when you don't have emotional securities, then if you're not, you'll see a lot of men build identity around their material possessions. You'll see a lot of men build and have built a lot of things around how they're being perceived from the world, from an external internal aspect rather from an internal external. So this is why, again, I'm called to build something from internal to external. But a lot of men, again, when you think about, let me use a couple people, like some people I know in the trenches, hustle culture. You know, that right there, when you don't prioritize your emotional well-being, you have no focus on, you're just gonna literally think that eventually that hustle culture, or no matter how much drugs you sell, no matter whether you white collar, blue collar, because it happens everywhere, no matter what you think you've built in some way, shape, or form, if that shit is not built off emotional stability, authenticity, integrity, and so forth, it's going to peak. It's going to reach. It's going to eventually come up. It's going to come to a halt, a dead end, and you're going to be faced with that. But a lot of men I've seen men who try to build stability on that, and when I recognize their patterns, because they had to adapt, and that was all they knew. They didn't know any better. And so that influence in itself, when you talk about a lot of fathers, these people, when you think about music, culture, and all of this, they were influenced to just be tough, to just da-da-da, never cry, never be honest about their feelings. So therefore, they're not going to be honest with your mothers. They're not going to be honest with nobody. And you got to think about the foundations. You got to think about vulnerability isn't a superpower to them. First, being vulnerable to themselves, and then even with that, when they try to, because some of them have tried, you know, they have had dealt with heartbreak. They have dealt with a lot of things. For some of them, your mother could have been the first heartbreak that they ever had, because you have so many different scenarios of people who could have grew up in something where, again, the women didn't prioritize emotional well-being, so they don't give a fuck. Now they end up having a child. That's when they now get their emotions involved. Same thing with men. A lot of their emotions didn't come up or peak until they saw you. They saw you holding you, picking you up. They saw life come full circle. Then you have some men who never had that experience with you. Meaning, like, had that experience of seeing life come through the womb. My perspective on life, where I realized I was chosen to actually see life come through the womb, man, it's something you cannot even put into words. Not just mentally, emotionally, and so forth. It's something you cannot put into words. And you're talking about a lot of men who never witnessed that, so they don't see the bridge to how life comes in and how life leaves. So that's, again, most of the time already a disconnect. And so this healing and so many things that's taking place, the things that I share, is to bring up these things for men and women. And, you know, wherever you are as a daughter, whatever your age is, if you have that awareness to resonate with this, or will come to resonate with this, it's very vital that, you know, men see life come into this world. I had the opportunity to see life come in, and I had the opportunity to actually, with the mother of my kids, like, deliver our son, like, together, you know, do things together. And so that right there was even more powerful. Even after that, like, what most of y'all don't know is that it's so many things that comes up around the fact of what it is to be not just a father. We immediately push into fatherhood, and we have to realize, before you reach fatherhood, you have been a teenager, or, you know, young adult, or you have childhood. What most people have missed out on And even when a lot of us had to be very responsible early, that's a very valuable point, a valid point I have to get at, is that if a lot of men grew up with single mothers, a lot of us grew up with responsibilities very early, very early. So one thing I learned even into my 30s is how much, like, balancing my inner child is how much I don't, like, there's a balance between being responsible for my inner child and then my external life as an adult. The reason why this is so vital is I'm seeing the importance of how people miss out on what it is to have fun. This is why, like, some men well, I'm realizing, like, I'm reshaping through my imagination, through reconnecting with being a little boy again and balancing, because he never left, is challenging to connect with men who don't focus on their career, don't talk about their career first, their money, their accolades and stuff like that, rather than developing a brotherhood, a bond that just simply off of, again, being authentic, just, you know, not ego, not ego, wounded ego, like comparing and so forth. And that's what you see again a lot of collectively, that how men materialize things, how a lot of fathers focus on that, because this is the blueprint that they were given. When you think about baby boomers, when you think about a lot of those people, a lot of things that peaked around those times where they had so many things to do during the wars and stuff like that, what a lot is not talked about is how a lot of, they call it baby boomer for a reason. But a lot of those women, some of your mothers or grandmothers, they weren't happy in the situation that they're in. They never talked about it. A lot of them did things for just the sake of stability, because that man went off in a war and got PTSD and, developed so many different things that he never talked about. And then they give this illusion how veterans and other people are praised, or all this illusion of, again, nothing really prioritizing well-being overall. So now they return to a country who doesn't prioritize well-being. It's no difference in how you see the prison system and all this other stuff, things that are not prioritized and so forth. They don't care when they come home. It's a business. It's just as long as that they making money off of seeing them as a product, or seeing them as a byproduct, or whatever you want to call it, like seeing them as just whatever it is. Because these are your elderly men, and the men who has been placed in position, and the elderly women who don't care about well-being, who's behind them, who have escaped through religion, or escaped through the fact of not knowing what it is to have that man prioritize her. You talking about all these, well, not even just her, but his well-being. So now he's drunk and going through all this shit and combative and abusive. Come on. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. These are some of y'all grandfathers who intergenerationally, your fathers carry the same blueprint. They may not do the same thing. They may have. That's why they encourage them. Go to war. Go to war over what? Bitch, I'd rather go to peace. Why the fuck I want to go to war? I'd rather find peace. And that's the beauty of even all of this shit. Is that, why would you want to go to war? You think you came here to go to war? And these are cycles and cycles. And these are the men that you look at to this day. It doesn't, wherever they are in life, a lot of them have accumulated their shit they never talk about, but it's so evident now, because these are the ones that are ticking time bombs. These are the ones that's on the brink right now of fucking exploding. These are the ones, the men who won't talk about it, won't go to therapy, but now later on in their years, why you see a high, when you connect to not even just the fact of how they step out of marriages and do other stuff. A lot of it has a lot to do with they never found peace. So a lot of them was never happy with, let's say, your mother or other people. Like women, they never got peace with their mother. So as much as they want to get away from them, they still feel an unhealthy attachment that they don't even know how to free themselves from. So a lot of them go through that. They don't know how to cut cords or let go emotionally to where they know how to show up with themselves. So they continue to get into the connections where the woman smothers them. They never rise out of that wounded childhood state. So they repeat cycles. I've been there, I experienced it. And I told myself, I'm like, what? I had to recognize these things to be able to talk about it. I had to live through it. So a lot of your fathers, men out here, I don't care how much they have. I don't care what they've accumulated. Their disconnect to you as daughters, no matter your age, and especially if you have grandchildren, stems back from their mother womb. And they don't see the importance of healing that and recognizing it because it plays a major role in supporting not just your kids financially, not just your kids providing stuff like that. Not some of y'all fathers hide behind religion. Again, another way, another form of emotional connection. They'll tell you to take it to God. They'll tell you, well, I gotta go to this religion. Talking, I'm like, but it has nothing to do with them. What about you and I? Y'all don't realize it's an energetic bridge. That's why my mother connection has shown me so much about how I chose women. Greatest lessons. To love myself. To hold space for myself more. To mother myself. Like I said, a lot of men have never been in this season or stepped into this because I had to get to a place I could not give a fuck about what nobody had to say when it came to my well-being overall. It don't gotta make sense to nobody. I would encourage more men. Y'all always encouraging women to step into their soft era and step into the, girl, ain't nothing soft about it. There's still layers up under that. Men are just as emotional. Y'all need to research the fact that sons are just as much emotional as daughters growing up. So you're talking about men who have uncontrollable rage, never knew how to navigate things, and because of just how our brains are processed, because we assert things and we act. That's why you see more combativeness in a way, like how we assert things through action, to where that's why it's so important for our mothers to guide us. Because then they're guiding and protecting us how to navigate through that, and then even the balance with a father being there, which some men, even if they did, some of them hide the fact that their fathers were abusive. They were drunks. They were disconnected. So a lot of it plays a major role in both parties being there. Both entities, as mother and father. Some type of balance, some type of structure. And for a lot of y'all never say it as daughters and stuff. You come to that realization, like you'll see how fucked up and how much you even want to have hatred towards that man. Some of you do, because some of the things that you have walked into. Shit, the mother of my children, we said before, well, we said to ourselves, like, I ain't even gonna hold you. Like, I wish I would have had a different type of upbringing, because I would have chose differently. But it's not something like that. May sound harsh to people, but you just start to realize you both didn't have certain things, and but you see the lesson in how you had to go this route to become aware of yourself, to be more better for yourself. And that's a choice. That's free will. So, like I've seen and noticed how their connection with her father is. For my sisters, it's deep to where some of them didn't know about their father till later on in their years, or you heard certain things about them, and it wasn't something that you were proud of, and so forth, because that daddy-daughter love is forever. And then some of you never had the chance to even experience that, and you still want that. So that father wound aspect is a part of you accepting and then navigating through that, and being able to give yourself grace. Because a lot of these men, I'm going to tell you, are not going to fucking therapy. They're going to, man, what? They won't even talk to you about certain things. They'll deny it. They'll wish they could have. There's so many different scenarios. They're not going to do it. They don't want to. But for those that are, like I said, such as myself, it's a beautiful experience because you're a student of life. As much as I didn't want to know things, I told myself if there's certain things I've experienced, I have to find other ways to recognize, like, how could I show up better for myself? And that's learning through, if you want to call it making mistakes or lived experience. And that comes with slowing the fuck down too. A lot of men never knew how to slow down. Yeah, they don't make millions, hundreds of thousands, whatever the fuck it is, through their careers. Then a lot of them get to that place, their body's fucked up. They never listen to it, because your body it isn't just a physical vessel. It's a spiritual, mental, and emotional thing. So a lot of them don't know how to sit down. Because when you got to sit with those emotions, that's what they fear. I had to sit with that shit. I had to sit with them thoughts. I had to sit with the very thing. Because that's what therapy allows you to do. You have to sit with that. Then you got to process it. Then you got to go home. Then you got to think about what was said in therapy. Then it makes you reflect on what you experienced in childhood. It brings up so many different emotions. Because your adulthood reflects your childhood, so you will see how so many things will bring up so much that you either ignored or people ignored about you as a child, as that man being a child. There's so many things that'll be brought up that you didn't even realize, like, what? Dang, my mom never, you never know what comes up. They never love. He probably thinks about that as your mother. She never loved me. Look how she treated me. Then you got to reflect on what was her experience with her father. But for a lot of men, again, they're not going to do it. It's not your fault. Because in their adapting, I talked about this on one video, in what they probably experienced from their mother, they had to adapt. They had to create patterns that they wasn't proud of. Or through the mental distortion or just mental illness, they actually thought their patterns of going out here and making babies or making you or doing certain things was just okay. Somebody will take care of. The grandma, the mama will. Yeah, there's a lot of men out there. That's why I tell you, bro, being present with myself, being more present with my kids, being like that's what emotions will have your ass going through. Breathing. How do I feel right now? Am I feeling this shit? So again, going through this season, most men don't know how to sit down. And these transits is going to reveal that. That's why they're carrying so much anger and rage. It's just a moment in time where shit gonna go up. And it's not their fault. It's just a little boy in them that has repressed so much for so long, continue to suppress it and escape through their careers. I don't give a fuck what it is, sports, I don't care on what level, all of that. When you see little boys going to gym, we know this, anger. When you see them getting cussed out by coaches, transmuted anger, how they've been talked to. When they go home, dealing with whatever type of vices that they have to that you know nothing about because he never talk to you about what he went through with his mother and father, abandonment issues. That's why he abandoned you. That's why, he don't know. A lot of men don't know how to fucking be a father. I didn't know how to do this shit. I'm still learning. I had to remove the title and realize like a part of feminine and masculine energy are one and the same, to where you just have feminine attributes and yin and yang aspect, like they all are one and the same, dark and light, however you want to perceive it. But it's more so like mothering myself consists of things that deal with the feminine archetype, and then how it gives birth to the way how I father myself. So I had to change my whole trajectory around that. Most men don't have that blueprint, because once you start to realize, like in showing up for yourself, it literally collapses the illusion you were living in. It literally shatters the foundation of what you assume was stability. So to the world, I would be perceived as a man that's not as stable as a man who has a mansion, $500,000 in the bank, $5,000 in the bank, or something like that. To the world, of course. But to a man who prioritizes his well-being and navigates through his emotions, I'm more stable longevity, more focused on my inner world than what's on the external world, because I know what's gonna happen. I seen it, I lived it. And I don't have to escape through anything else to know how stable I am. That's why a lot of y'all gonna see how, like, again, y'all don't know the blueprint to a lot of these men. Y'all don't know a lot of the blueprint to why y'all fathers stay away. Because it's a mirror. You're a mirror to him. That's what they fear. Some of them run because they know. Some of them know. Some of them try to give you money and stuff. It's just another form of escapism, trying to pull the wool over your head, and behind the scenes involved in who knows what. It's not about judgment, it's just the fact of like the world is shifting. And a part of me realizing what I am called to build, stone by stone, brick by brick, has a lot to do with recognizing not just how I feel, but getting through it, and then you balancing that emotion and logic. Knowing that emotions are gonna come and go, know that I have to be logical and practical. Knowing that I did not receive certain things, but knowing that if I'm present with how I feel, what I did not receive, let me feel through that. It's a lot of things that come up when men, fathers start to realize, for a lot of them that had absent fathers, like how much they have lived a lie, pretty much lived a lie. Because a lot of people, when I say majority of men are fake and are inauthentic, simply because they vicariously are living out someone else's belief system without developing their own. So a lot of them will go into settings, and you'll see even how a lot of these things are built structurally is from stepping on the backs of other people, especially preying on little girls and men, and other women, and also just through the it's like when you think about a lot of things that have been hidden to how they have built stuff off of, and then they protect the image. A lot of this is so surface to where a lot of men literally vicariously live through a false narrative to protect their image, but to ignore their internal world. So the collapsing of that is already happening. But a lot of them, again, in certain settings, they'll play small to other men who they assume has power just because of their monetary value or how it's been perceived to the world, their positioning in this career setting or so forth. It goes on and on. But notice how with women or with little girls, there's automatically this disconnect. So they don't see the bigger picture to how those very little girls and women are, a nation can rise no higher than the woman and or child, you know, especially the daughters, because life comes through them. So a lot of men don't have this mindset. They were never given this blueprint. So a lot of their blueprints are centered around abuse, self-neglect, which really leads to self-destruction, which leads to abuse, self-abuse, self-abandonment, self-neglect. And that's been their blueprint for generations. It cannot be ignored and no longer be ignored. So the shit that you assume that they're stable, it's not, because these shifts that are happening is going to expose everything about who they are, how greedy they are, how selfish, self-righteous they are, and how they have literally created, a lot of your fathers, again, have created through this false perception of imagery, casting this illusion that they are stable. They have created a false identity, and they battle with it. They'll never tell you. I'm telling you from a man and a father perspective. Just even assuming certain narratives and stuff that I live by, every time it led me down a path of self-destruction or so forth, I'm like, okay, in that message is something that I have to come on, throat chop. In that message is something that I have to change. That's a pattern in that. And a lot of them have had to adapt, no matter their demographics, no matter what it is. Because whoever sells drugs to the person who comes from a neighborhood that might be up to par, and then eventually they get too addicted and they end up in the very place. So it's like, then the ones who gives them are just as what? Y'all not see how the shit all comes full circle? And it ain't even about this. So, you think they finna go to therapy about this shit? Before they do that, they so prideful. They so ego. There's a balance between the ego and higher self. But it's more so like the wounded aspect. Before they do that, they'll escape through whatever else before. A lot of them will try to escape through violence, escape through power struggles. Because that's one thing I realize of how vital emotions are. When you don't balance them bitches, it's either gonna take control of you, or you gonna have to learn how to navigate through the motherfuckers. And that's from growing up in abuse to recycling the shit, to realizing like how in moments that impulse, we all have it. Whether you wanna call it animalistic, whatever the fuck you wanna call it, we all have it. I mean, look at the world. Look at the focus right now for a lot of stuff. Well, this video is probably gonna be on my new channel, but you'll be able to see it soon. But no, actually, it's gonna be up. It's gonna be current, because I'm gonna upload it today. But it'll be available on the thing. But again, some of y'all gonna realize that most of your grandfathers and so forth, a lot of these men, they're avoiding who they really are through the emotion of who they and so forth. They're basically saying they choose war. They don't choose peace. Because then in that, you will realize how much you will try to make amends, or in some way, a lot of them are going to leave this world with a lot of y'all seeing the importance of no contact, because you'll recognize how unhealthy they are for themselves and everybody involved. The world is about to see how wicked and how unhealthy a lot of men and then the women who supported their demise. Because it's a lot of your fathers, y'all got to realize, like, there is a backstory to a lot of stuff too. So before you just judge them, know that there's a backstory. That's why I speak about my experience. But that doesn't mean like I justify it. No, I too have to navigate through this shit. It don't happen overnight. Because I realize if I don't check me, if I don't see what's going on with me, I don't want to continue pushing those away that I care about. Because if I care about my well-being, then therefore the well-being of others are just as important too. So yeah, when you talk about apologies, when you talk about a lot of things, a lot of men didn't grow up in this shit. A lot of y'all grandfathers right now carry a lot of self-hatred. And for some of them, even if it's people towards me that look like me, a lot of that has a lot to do with their own insecurities. Because for one, I ain't ever been in competition or care to be in competition with nobody that don't look like me or look like me. Now, when it comes to how you got to see how a lot of things are structured in this world, a lot of them are consumed by that. Look at sports. Look at a lot of stuff that is built around the wounded ego. That doesn't mean we can't play and have fun, but a lot of it is so competitive. It's so ego. It's so versus this versus this. In reality, if you don't see the awareness around it's you versus you first, then you will realize like it's you against the world. Well, it'll naturally be like that once you start to be in tune with yourself. But for them, it's just they'll make every excuse. And a lot of y'all don't really want to realize when a man is not aware of who he is on the emotional state and know how to navigate through things, through his action, he will destroy his kingdom or empire, whatever it is. And that's what y'all seeing. I'm not surprised what's happening. I'm not at all surprised what's going on. You're seeing a cleansing of consciousness. You're seeing the cleansing of people who have been in war, the powers that used to be, all this shit. You're seeing that no matter what their status is, they're just as part of it too. That's why I tell you, it don't matter what type of man it is. He can have money or not have money or whatever it is. A lot of them too are just as part and are just as accountable when they can see the state of the well-being of a lot of you as daughters, and then a lot of you as whatever career setting that you're in. If they don't care about their well-being, so they won't care about yours. That's why a lot of y'all, it happens like that. Now you're left without protection, guidance, how to choose men. Some of you have went through sexual abuse, physical, mental. And then without therapy, without talking to someone, you've had to live with it just as he did. You see how the patterns and adapting to the same thing? Yeah, it continues. So when you see all this silent treatment or a lot of men that just want to be to themselves, they have the opportunity, just like I'm telling you, I've had to have the opportunity to sit with myself. They can sit with themselves or they can escape. And that's what it comes down to. Them doing the shadow work, them facing themselves, them facing their fears. Fears is like also facing within yourself things you didn't know to rise above them. Having the conversations with your mother, having the conversations with you, having the conversations with the people, you know, that played a major role in his dysfunctional ways. So that'll about do it. This is, I think, episode 3 or 4 for the conversations from the father you never had. Y'all take care of yourself. Appreciate you. Peace and blessings. Shalom.